Okay, here I go again. Are you holding on to something out there? Because it's the Midnight Skeptic coming at you yet again. So here is my play in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, now, this is show number 56, and it's going to be broadcast on Sunday the 20th at the usual time, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's midnight back on the East Coast when some of my fans back there get to listen to me. Today, it's Wednesday, and it's the 16th of February, and I hope that some of you tuned in to Mickey Huff's show on KPCALP 103.3 FM, because his show is on Wednesdays at 1 to 2, and then it's repeated again on KPFA over in Berkeley from 1 to 2 on Fridays. Okay, the views, I keep saying this. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access or this radio station, KPCALP 103.3 FM, or it's a couple of TV stations they have that they use to broadcast live city council meetings, planning commissions, and all that kind of stuff. And but my views should damn well be the views of those people down at the KPCA, and it should be the views of everybody that tunes in here. I don't think I have any viewers on or listeners on KPCA LP or YouTube viewers that are, conservative or right-wing or Republican. Maybe there might be a few. If you are listening and you are a Republican, a conservative, a MAGA head, whatever, I've insulted you guys enough. Send all your suggestions and compliments, if you have any, and hate mail and death threats and requests for whatever you'd like the Midnight Skeptic to take up and rant about. Let me know. Anyway, send all those kind of things to the Midnight Skeptic, all one word, at gmail.com. Okay, shout outs. My international listeners via anchor.fm. Usually they get it on Spotify, along with Joe Rogan and myself. I'll have a little bit to say about him a little later. But anyway, I got a couple in Ireland, a couple in the UK, one in Germany, one in the Czech Republic, a couple in Australia, and a couple in New Zealand. I have no idea whether they're regular listeners or they just happen to stumble upon my show once, but whatever. Send me an email, themidnightskeptic@gmail.com. Okay, shout-outs, more shout-outs. The East Coast, Geraldine Goldfinger, Dr. David Rubin, and down in Florida, Amelia Beamer in Edgewater, Florida, and then across on the other side of Florida, Nelson and Alice Slidell, and then down to Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina and their daughter Andrea, who is my niece. She's a nurse down there at a hospital. Take care of yourself, Andrea. And her husband, Tim, retired from the Marine Corps. Booyah! And they're three little terrorists. Okay, and then over to L.A., Jackie and Wayne Kolar, and then coming up the coast of California to Stan and Kathy and Pacifica, and then up to further north to Rich and Kathy Berger in Sebastopol. The Sonora Gang, Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. Martha, who is their daughter, also a nurse. Please, Martha, take care of yourself. Don't catch COVID. It's still going around up there. Okay. Darrell Larson, Judy May, Lena Desmaciel, Kathy Francis, and then all the way down in Mexico City, an ex-Sonoraite, Rosie Lopez Negrete. And then over in Sacramento, Dave and Rosie Takach. And then Mickey Huff, who is the godfather of Project Censored, which is the Project Censored show earlier on Wednesday here, 1 to 2, KPFA or KPCA LP. And then Fridays, 1 to 2, over in Berkeley, KPFA. Okay. Okay, here locally, Tim Conrad here in Petaluma, and Nariman. I don't know how many weeks I'm going to have to say this in a row, but we're just going to have to get together for another little glass of wine here at in Theater Square at this wine bar that we both like. Oh, and Chris Ballard, he's locally, I think up in Santa Rosa, but he said that he listens in every now and then. So, Chris Ballard, thanks for listening. Okay. Howard Stern. Now, he's a radio personality that I really like. And he advises Joe Rogan just to say, I'm wrong and go get the vaccine before you die, quote unquote. And he said that on Tuesday, February 8th on the Howard Stern Show. I'm wrong. Listen, I'm a comedian, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's the advice that Howard Stern is giving to Joe Rogan to say on his show. I'm not going to hold my breath for Joe Rogan to say that, however. Excuse me, another sip. Okay. Huntington, West Virginia. Students at a West Virginia high school, I guess Huntington High School, I don't know that they would have more than one high school in that town. But anyway, they were instructed to go to an assembly. That happens in high school. However, in this case, the assembly was being put on by an evangelical Christian, the Nick Walker Ministries. His Nick Walker Ministries were incorporated in 2019, and he's only 29 years old, which is, young for an evangelical, Jesus screaming pastor. Okay, and I'm sure that he makes a lot of money doing this. But anyway, it's a evangelical Christian revival assembly. The students were asked to close their eyes, raise their arms in prayer, and give their lives over to Jesus. High school senior Max Nybert led a student walk out. Good for him. Good for him. He's become one of my idols. Led a student walk out of more than 100 students, chanting, "Separate the church and state." Yay. Also, my faith, my choice. Okay? All right. So, good for those students in West Virginia, and good for any students that insist on the separation of church and state. Okay. No Jesus screamers proselytizing in our schools of any kind. Okay. Oklahoma blasphemy law. Okay, now this is another bill introduced by Republicans in the Republican state legislature, and it's called the Students' Religious Belief Protection Act. And it was introduced by Senator Rob Standridge, and it's a Senate Bill 1470. Teachers would be personally fined $10,000, meaning they can't, if they lose the court case, they can't appeal to any outside money sources. It has to be paid by the teachers themselves. Okay, $10,000 for teaching anything that contradicts a student's quote unquote closely held religious beliefs. Now, that phrase, closely held, how do you measure that? Well, you can't. But that phrase has cropped up in a lot of laws, and originally, well, I guess in a lot of places this is still an excuse for not getting the COVID vaccine. If you have closely held religious beliefs against getting a vaccine, you're exempt. Okay, well, in this case, if a student has a closely held religious belief that is contradicted in their mind by anything that the teacher teaches, like, the Big Bang was 13.8 million years ago, and our Earth began, I'm not sure exactly, about 5 or 6 million years ago. It formed out of dust clouds swirling around our sun. If that were taught, a student who is a fundamentalist young Earth creep, they can object. They can go tell Mummy and Daddy, and then the parents can sue. This bill, thank goodness, is, however, unlikely to actually become law. I mean, Republicans may be creeps, but there are some, like governors, that are, they just realize that things that are that bad are just self-defeating, I guess. Okay, now, this business about Joe Rogan's right-wing guest bias. Matthew Sheffield, who, let's see, who is this guy? Matthew Sheffield. He is a right-wing journalist, commentator. I think he has his own podcast. But anyway, Matthew Sheffield has compiled a list of Joe Rogan's guests and separated them into left-wing and right-wing. I would have to dispute his categorizing of a lot of these guests, especially Russell Brand. Now, if you're not familiar with who Russell Brand is, he's a British stand-up comic. I became aware of him when he went on David Letterman's show a number of times. And he's very funny. I like him. And but okay, Russell Brand on his podcast, Under the Skin, that's what he calls it. Check him out if you want. But anyway, on YouTube, Russell Brand, quote unquote, so I'm right wing now? Russell Brand was on the list of right wing guests compiled by this Matthew Sheffield. Okay, let's see. I'm kind of out of order here on my notes. But anyway, Matthew Sheffield is a conservative journalist who has written for the National Review, that magazine that was started by, Brain freeze. It'll come to me. Okay. And also the Washington Examiner, which is a right-wing newspaper. Forbes magazine says of Russell Brand, essentially he's a harrier, which is a word for a small, annoying creature, usually a dog. It's constantly attacking and nips at your heels like a small little Pomeranian dog or something. A barefoot version of Joe Rogan. This is what Forbes says about Russell Brand. A barefoot version of Joe Rogan, more likely to skin and devour an eggplant rather than an elk. I'm not sure exactly what Forbes means by that, but like Russell Brand isn't serious, I guess that's what they mean by that. He does take the time to talk to leftists and liberals, but he's always been good at making a word salad sound like a profound insight. Okay, his dismissal of Russiagate and his vaccine skepticism has moved some of his fans to fear that he has gone over to the dark side. Okay, enough of that. Okay, Republicans' war on education to create an educational Republican dystopia is continuing apace. Another sip coming up here. My throat is unusually dry today. Okay, Republicans' war on education. Okay, Indiana House Bill 1134 by State Rep Tony Cook, who's a Republican from Cicero, outlines a number of restrictions on curriculum, including limits on how educators could address topics such as race, politics and religion, gender, and ethnicity. The bill is named Education Matters. Teachers, oh boy, teachers are getting to be the most picked on category in this nation, picked on by Republicans. Republicans are the only ones that just, you can say honestly, pick on various groups that for whatever reason they consider to be a threat to them. Well, educators are a threat to Republicans. Being educated and a thinking person means that you are probably not going to be a Republican. Okay, back to this bill in Indiana. Teachers must post their lesson plans a year in advance. Parents would be allowed to sue a school that does not follow the new rules that, quote unquote, protect students from feeling, wait for it, discomfort or guilt. This is just a thing against CRT, and I guess included in that is sexuality or any talk of the LGBTQ community. Okay, on that same sort of note, Virginia State Senator Amanda Chase on the 10th of this month said that she predicts, and I in parentheses said hopes for, a quote-unquote great cleansing of liberal public school teachers. That's what Republicans want. They want all teachers to be replaced by Trump loyalists. Yeah, that's an exaggeration, of course, but I'm not sure how much of an exaggeration it is. Okay. Conservative and retired teachers, get your resumes ready, she says. The great cleansing of our public schools from liberal doctrine is about to begin. We are going to put students first for a change. It's time to take back our schools. I'm done with this, with the teachers' unions controlling the classrooms. Our kids have suffered enough. Now, this is Amanda Grace. She's a state senator from Virginia. Of course, she's a Republican. This is just an example of the Republican thinking. Okay. Good news. Whew. I really did look around for good news for this edition of the Midnight Skeptic, because I've fielded some complaints that I should have more good news on the show. And, I like to laugh too much. I don't like to be angry. I really don't. Believe it or not. You might not be able to tell it from this show, but anyway, good news. Remington Firearms. They were in the news lately. They've agreed to pay $73 million to families of the Sandy Hook school massacre. 7 years after the families sued the maker of the Bushmaster XM15-E25 semi-automatic that was used in the 2012 mass shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. Deaths and injuries from gun violence is actually trending downward in 2022. I ran across a graph, and the data doesn't go back more than a couple of years, but the trend, believe it or not, is downward in shooting deaths. Now, okay, back to this Remington thing. They have declared bankruptcy, and this originally they offered the parents of the Sandy Hook parents $33 million. Well, that was rejected because the Sandy Hook parents and their lawyer wanted all the internal memos and marketing suggestions that are normally just internal to the company to be released to the public. I mean, meaning released to the parents first, and then they would release it to the public. And this is something that the gun industry just does not want. One of the ads that I saw on my own lefty propaganda shows, MSNBC, showed a picture. This is an ad from Remington. It showed just the picture of this AR-14 light gun, and the catchphrase was, "If it's good enough for professionals, it should be good enough for you." Come on, if you're a real man, you're going to go out and get one of these semi-automatic weapons. The gun industry appeals to guys whose dicks are too small. I hope I can say that. The station manager probably wouldn't like it, but I'll take my chances. Okay. Good news. California state legislators are taking aim at vaccine misinformation. One bill, Senate Bill 1018 by Richard Pan, Democrat from Sacramento. He's a pediatrician, by the way. Would require social platforms online to publicly disclose how their information algorithms work. Okay, that would be a step in the right direction to see how you get inundated with certain ads online. Okay. He said, this is Richard Pan saying this, it should not be left up to a handful of rich tech executives to decide how we respond to a pandemic. Here, here. Okay, Assembly Bill 2098 by Assemblyman Evan Lowe, he's a Democrat from Campbell, is designed to police false information spread by a small minority of doctors. And this small minority of doctors, quote unquote doctors, it would be easier for the Medical Board of California to discipline physicians who spread incorrect claims about COVID-19 vaccines. I got down toward the end of the page here, and my handwriting kind of had to be squeezed into smaller and smaller areas there. Okay. Let's see. It can't be that I've run out of space here. I know I had more than this. Oh, huh. Okay. I haven't. For some reason, I skipped a blank page. Okay. Well, I knew I had written more than that. Quickie time check. Okay. In response to these bills by Pam and who's the other guy? Richard Pan and Assemblyman Evan Lowe. Christina Hildebrand, she's an activist who founded the group A Voice for Choice Advocacy, says that they could drive doctors, she's referring to these two bills, they could drive doctors who promote alternative treatments from California when there's already a doctor shortage. Well, okay, she didn't specify which alternative treatments she meant, but if doctors, to my way of thinking, alternative and complementary medicine is quackery. Homeopathic drugs, needle sticking, there's a word for it, acupuncture. I'm having a brain freeze. Pardon me. Maybe a sip of, this is actually milk today. It worked. Naturopathic doctors. If those guys leave the state, we're better off. Okay. Now, where was I? Okay, Christine Hillebrand, A Voice for Choice. I looked that group up online, and nothing about it leaps out at you as anti-vax. They just want people to have more accurate information. Okay, now you can disguise your true intent by using phrases like that. All we want is just more accurate information. Certainly, we don't trust the CDC or the NIH or anybody that really has scientists that study these things like COVID-19 vaccines. We just want to be careful about what we put in our body. That was the gist of what they're all about. a voice for choice. Anyway, Christina Hillebrand, started this about 2 years ago, and essentially they're an anti-vax organization. All right. Take a deep breath time. All right. Now, this falls under the rubric of silly good news. A priest resigned yesterday, meaning February 15th, Tuesday, after his diocese discovered the baptisms he had performed were invalid because he had changed a single word while performing the sacrament. Okay. Thomas J. Olmsted, who is the bishop of the Diocese of Phoenix, after careful study, the use of the phrase, "We baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit." That's what he said, this priest, instead of the words, "I baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." Because the priest said that last phrase, "I baptize you." Oh, the "I baptize you" is the correct phraseology. "We baptize you" is wrong. Okay. Because the priest said, "We baptize you," it made all the baptisms performed by the priest, who is the Reverend Andres Aranjo, Aranjo. Those whose children were baptized by Aranjo in error can fill out an online form to have the baptism repeated. Well, this has been going on since 1995 when Naranjo became a priest. And he started out being a priest in Brazil, and then he came to the United States, I think in LA first, and then over to Phoenix. But thousands of baptisms have been invalidated since 1995. Okay, now get this. Because baptism is, quote unquote, the sacrament that grants access to all the other sacraments, a botched baptism could invalidate any subsequent sacraments, including confirmation, marriage, and holy orders. I'm not really sure what holy orders are. I'm not religious and certainly not Catholic, but I'm just not sure what holy orders means. Okay. Well, I'm glad that the Bishop of Phoenix, was that what he was? The Diocese of Phoenix corrected this now, because, God could get really pissed off at such a mistake. And, all the marriages performed for people that had an invalid baptism, well, they've been living in sin. And God certainly won't like that. Okay. All right. And I've got yet another odious, mean-spirited, creepy Republican who is running for Senate in Missouri. Okay, her name. She's a Republican representative now. Vicky Hartzler, Hartzler, of Missouri. She's running for a Senate seat, and she said in a political ad that that is almost doing nothing except attacking Leah Thomas, Liathomas. Well, who is that, you might ask yourselves. She is a trans woman swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania. And this brings up the whole trans women in sports issue again. And that's a favorite Republican talking point, that trans women really are men. And do you remember when on Jeopardy, what's her name? Amy Schneider, who broke all sorts of records on Jeopardy. I think she won 40 in a row and well in excess of $1 million. But she was getting, of course, tweets on the Twitterverse about, well, you're not really a woman, Amy. You're really a man. I would imagine that all of the mean tweets that she got were from Republicans or conservatives or Christian evangelicals or, did I say MAGA heads? Members of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay, but that's how they are. Okay, and she seems to think that by running these ads attacking a trans woman, excuse me, that more of the people of Missouri will vote for her. That gives you an idea of the Republican thinking about what they think about their constituents. Okay, all right. The NCAA has rules that require 2 years of testosterone blockers in a male transitioning to a female. Now, I've got to say that there's much dispute and some uncertainty over the effectiveness of testosterone blockers. Okay, it does. If you take testosterone blockers, and if you've already gone through puberty, what it will do is lower the ability of your red blood cells to carry oxygen to your muscles, which is quite important for strenuous athletics, and it will tend to reduce your muscle mass. Okay? Now, there's a lot of questions and scientific uncertainty about when the testosterone blockers were started, how long do they take? I mean, how long should you use testosterone blockers? And does it lower your athletic abilities to the point where the best women athletes could still have a chance to beat you if you're a trans woman? Okay, there's a lot about that. Now, there's a book that I'm going to get, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I would recommend that any of my listeners out there get. It's called Testosterone, an Unauthorized biography by Katerina Karzasis. No, I didn't write it in my notes. I wrote it on my desk calendar here. That's why I kind of had to lean forward to get that. But I would recommend, if you have an interest in this issue, then to get that book, Testosterone, an Unauthorized Biography. there's a separate organization called USA Swimming, which uh, is the rule-setting body for collegiate swimmers. I guess high school also, but they have settled upon a level of testosterone of 5 nanomoles per liter in the bloodstream, and it has to be down at that level for 3 years in a row before a trans female will be allowed to compete openly against other women in collegiate swimming meets. Okay, now that is being disputed by some researchers over in England uh, whose specialty is studying female trans athletes. So this whole subject has a long way to go to be settled, if it ever will be settled. There's an Olympic sprinter from South Africa, Castor Semenya, and she is a woman. She was born a woman, and when I see pictures of her, I mean, she kind of looks manly to me, but she's always been a woman, and she, as a world class athlete, has an unusually high level of testosterone naturally. There are some conditions in women that result in that. Okay, should she be penalized for that? I don't think so. I'm all for letting Castor Semenya compete. Okay? All right, so enough of that. Okay, alert, democracy in danger. Republicans, or better known as the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, are going ahead against the very idea of democracy. Republicans who are of the big lie Trump loyalists bent are running for local election offices such as secretaries of state. Roughly about 24 of these Trump loyalists are running for Secretary of State across the country. This once obscure office has attracted dark money from right-wing sources to help elect these anti-democratic Trump loyalists. So, and it's not just Secretary of States, it's any local election official that has to be elected, they're running for it. And what they want to do is be able to themselves count the votes. Okay. There's at the state level, gerrymandering and voter suppression. Okay, well, suppressing the vote just isn't enough for them. They want to be able to count the votes after what votes there are have been cast to make sure that the orange sociopathic bloat bag and his loyalists get back into power. So, Secretary of State. Okay, in California here, we don't need to worry about that. But in states like Texas or Arizona, Colorado, their Secretary of State, who is a Democrat currently, she's running against this lady that was arrested for tampering with voting machines. And that didn't stop this lady from still running for Secretary of State. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, a couple of other states that have some orange sociopathic bloat bag loyalists running for Secretary of State in hopes of letting the OSB, orange sociopathic bloat bag, regain his power in the presidency. Okay. Senate Republicans aren't even trying to hide their racism behind their obstruction of Biden's appointments of black women to Treasury Department positions. Republicans on the Banking Committee have blocked Lisa Cook, a Michigan State University professor of economics. If confirmed, she would be the first ever black woman to serve on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. You know Republicans will bend over backwards to block any of Biden's black women nominees for the Supreme Court. We've already shown creeps like Ted Cruz say that how dare Biden state out loud that he's going to appoint a black woman to a Supreme Court position. Okay. Republican politicians and a lot of just Republican citizen sympathizers, not all, but a lot, are just out and out mean racists. I'm standing by that. Okay, time check. I have a little bit more time left. Okay. Religion and state news coming up. Missouri Governor Mike Parsons states that he will only appoint persons with Christian values to office in the state. I guess non-Christians are second-class citizens. And up in Ohio, U.S. Senate candidate Josh Mandel, a Republican, of course, says that separation of church and state doesn't exist. The Judeo-Christian religion that America was based upon does not include the Muslim faith. This is what he said. It should go without saying, but I will keep saying it. It should go without saying that American Muslims and American atheists, of which I am, are fully American. I guess not to Republicans. Christian nationalism. Okay, now I'll end on this note. There was a Jewish couple in Tennessee. Oh, God. The worst of the worst as far as Republican Christian nationalism. They were turned down for adoption services. I don't know the details of it. I guess they wanted to adopt a kid or two kids or whatever. But they were turned down because of their non-Christianness. Okay, so there other religions besides Christian nationalists are odious. Hindu nationalists are rearing their ugly heads. In India itself, it's not like it's okay there, but Indian Americans who migrate, like a diaspora of Indians, carry their prejudices with them. And the Hindu religion is just as bad as any of the worst Christian beliefs in the world. Okay, the Dalits, D-A-L-I-T-S, they used to be called openly untouchables. Now, what that prohibited them from doing over in India is marrying outside of their caste, of working in jobs that are reserved for the upper castes. The highest case, I believe, was the Brahmins, Brahmans. I'm not completely conversant with the Hindu religion and the caste system over in India, but these Indians have brought their caste prejudices with them, and the Dalits in this country are complaining about being discriminated against by other Indians. Okay, so they get it from both sides. They get prejudice against them from whites in America, and they also get prejudice against them by their own Indian countrymen. I feel sorry for them, but it's going on here and other countries where there's a large Indian community. Okay. One thing I would encourage my listeners to do out there, the local people, you can go to Copperfields, downtown Petaluma here, but listeners elsewhere around the world and in this country, please go out and purchase this book. Okay, well, the first book is Testosterone, an unauthorized biography. And I've already forgotten the lady who wrote it, but anyway. The book that I'm going to encourage you to go out and buy now, that's been banned in Republican-controlled areas, is Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe. Her last name is spelled capital Kobabe. She's a local girl. She went to Petaluma High School here, and it's titled Genderqueer: A Memoir. It's her growing up life here in rather rural Petaluma. Her mom and dad were, I don't know, for want of a better word, kind of back to the earth hippie type mom and dad, but they were very accepting of her. And it is a graphic novel about her growing up as a young girl who, I want to be careful about what I say here, about her gender identity and the struggles that she's gone through. And it was very enlightening for me to read about what a young girl who is not fully accepting of herself goes through. And it goes all the way from early grammar school, all the way through high school, all the way through young adulthood. After she graduated, she went to Dominican College down in San Rafael, and then she went to an art school in San Francisco that offered a comics major. So she got her MFA in comics. And anyway, she made this book of, it's a graphic novel, and I'm going to hold up this for the YouTube people. I'm sorry about that for you radio people, but anyway, how she draws herself, it's kind of, if you didn't know her or know of her, it would be kind of hard to determine, well, is she a boy or a girl? And in the long run, what does it matter? She's came out to her mom as genderqueer and also asexual. In other words, she didn't really have an interest in being attracted to either boys or girls. And there was one page in this book of about 340 pages that depicted one sex scene between her and a lesbian older girl. And for that reason, the Republicans and school boards back in Republican-controlled states have their underwear in a knot over this. And so as a result, some school boards insisted on having this book pulled from the library shelves. And I've talked on the last two shows about Republican book burning and pulling books out of libraries. Republicans are just creepy people. Anyway, Genderqueer is one of the books, among others, that worried parents insisted on being pulled from library shelves. But Genderqueer is a very touching book about the struggles that she has growing up. And, Petaluma is all in all, is a very nice place for a young person to grow up. And my guy grew up here. Well, he's my audio engineer now and computer guy. I wouldn't be able to do this show at all if it weren't for his technical expertise. Okay, I'm going to play my play out music now. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Well, that does it for another week of Midnight Skeptic. I will probably be recording another show next Tuesday or Wednesday, for broadcast on the radio, KPCLP, on the 27th of February. So, thanks for listening, and think logically, think scientifically, think rationally, and pet your cats. Take care. Here we go. I'm